Gurren Lagann is one of those animes that had a huge hit when it first came out, and with good reasons. The anime has some extremely well-defined characters and some amazing passion put into it, which makes it vividly stand out against other anime of its time and even a good amount today. Well, among anime fans, it is often cited as a crazy anime, and for most people that is a good thing. Because of its well-defined identity, it is still remembered, watched, and discussed by people today. Perhaps it is not regarded as an absolute masterpiece or as one of the best animes ever, but still something that is worth being brought up and talked about every now and then. Even though I've been watching anime for some time, I have never really gotten around to it until now. And I'm glad that I did. The animation is beautiful, the music is great, and most importantly it has some brilliant characters with well-crafted interactions. Now, overall it did do some things beautifully which made me excited for each episode. But unfortunately it did have some problems, as most everything does. Its plot can be lacking at times, and sometimes it does have a habit of making plot points out of nowhere, which could understandably easily be a problem for some people. But what it does good, it does amazingly, and that to me is justification to enjoy the anime overall. Its positives outweigh the negatives. Yes, it has flaws, but it does have some really good things going for it too, that shouldn't be overlooked. As a quick synopsis for the plot, Gurren Lagann takes place in a world where humanity was forced to live in underground villages because of creatures called beastmen who'd kill any human who comes up to the surface. Our main character Simon lives in one of these villages until he gets wrapped up in the schemes of a possibly crazy man, Kamina, who is trying to escape. His village shortly after gets attacked by a gunman, aka a mech piloted by a beastman who appears because of a collapsing in the ceiling, and later they would team up, get to the surface, and steal their own gunmen to fight back. One of the for better or for worse assumptions for anime these days is being really crazy and over the top. Although I don't agree that every anime is like this, Gurren Lagann is definitely one of them, with crazy over the top action scenes left and right. Now don't get me wrong by this, I don't mean pointless. One of the things about this anime I loved the most was just the amount of heart and passion put in these scenes, which give you a reason to care and root for the characters. And that itself is the main reason why I feel that people really love this anime. Without the character casts, I don't think this anime would really be good at all. The plot overall is not very good, in fact I might go out to call it bad and generic. 90% of the time it's just childish and looks like, it's the boss, bad guy, go kill it, oh good job, but now there's a stronger bad guy off over there, now go! And then again, and repeat.
I'm the weakest of the 4 radical lords, and you'll be meeting the others soon enough.
What a generic setup.
Then there are 3 others who rule over the first 4.
The butler did it.
Then another thing that the plot also likes to abuse is how much it often likes to pull out a deus ex machina on us. If I had a dime for every time this happened, and some plot points out of nowhere or some people I've never heard of come out of nowhere and save the day, I could probably buy myself a nice little lunch. To be honest, this much overuse of deus ex machina is really glaring at sometimes, and it's just plain bad storytelling if you have to use it that much. A good example of this is when the first time Gurren Lagann transforms, and at this point I never really knew that it was possible that the two could transform, and I just thought that Kamina was completely out of his mind and just majorly damaged his gunmen. But then out of nowhere it ended up saving them. No foreshadowing or anything about this being possible before, but hey.
We're gonna combine!
We're gonna combine?
They're gonna combine!
They're gonna combine?
They're gonna combine!
Oh, please, honey.
We'll never know unless we try, will we? You see that? Now we got 2 faces too. What do you think, Fuzzball? We're the same as you.
But overall, luckily the plot isn't the most important part of a story. The foundation of a story are the characters, and without them your story is pretty much worthless. And Gurren Lagann definitely has some amazing characters with it. So let's start on that. Now let's talk about the one that's probably in all of your minds, and that would have to be Kamina. Without this guy and his actions on the story, I don't think I really would have liked this anime. And I also doubt it would be loved so much, if that was the case. Kamina, as I said before, is possibly crazy, but he fits really well in this world. He's always positive and overflows with enthusiasm to everyone around him, even if things look hopeless. Which is a perfect character for a world where humanity really has every right to be hopeless, since they just live in a world underground like caged animals, with really no hope of stopping the enemies who have, giant mechs who could easily kill them. It's just so easy to get behind this guy and the massive amount of passion he has. It's not just his enthusiasm that makes Kamina so likable. He does have personality and a backstory that makes him feel real, which is something I can't say for all anime protagonists. The best part of this is that he does show moments of sorrow and weakness, but still continues to think about the people around him, and still continues to encourage them and never give up. This makes him really honorable and likable for the audience to relate to. One point of the plot that I will stand by was really well executed revolves around this character, not too far into the story. I'm not going to spoil it, like the internet already has for me before I watched it, thanks guys! But it really will hit you like a ton of bricks. This event creates amazing character developments that lasted throughout the whole story. But I don't think Kamina is the only good character in the show. I also found myself really liking Simon, who usually teams up with Kamina, kinda like a sidekick in a way. At first he is kind of generic, but then he does go through some really well crafted character development revolving around the event I mentioned previous, that would in turn, to me, make him as likable as Kamina. I can't really go into this because, again, spoilers. These two are always a blast to see together on the screen. All their interactions felt genuine and created an investment. I really like how both of them gave something each other lacked. Kamina gives Simon confidence in himself, and Simon keeps Kamina from doing things too stupid or just crazy, and then brings him back down to earth. Which is really nice to see them both help each other in areas that they lack, which really makes them seem like such a good duo to have together on screen. The last quote-unquote main character is the girl called Yoko. Now, I wish that I could say that her crazy clothes, you know, the little ones she does wear, were just representations of a crazy/abnormal personality, but unfortunately that is not really the case. The camera constantly finds itself new and creative angles to get Yoko in, especially in the first episode, which I don't really ever like, this sudden blast fan service at the beginning of a first episode, which just seems to be so prevalent in a lot of things, because that's not a good way to hook someone on your show, which you'd be doing with characters and the plot, but, oh well, it's not going to kill anyone, I suppose. I never really liked this kind of fan service because it says to me the show isn't good enough to bring in an audience or hold our attention, so I have to show some girls and some angles and such. But I don't think that Yoko is here only to bring in hormonally challenged 16-year-olds. Well, kind of, but she doesn't seem to have an extremely well-crafted personality that really makes her stand out like Kamina, but I never found her to be bad, more just mediocre. The best interactions she does have are mainly because of Kamina and Simon. In fact, that kinda goes for the rest of the cast as well. Most of the other characters range from mediocre to a bit above average. Although it really makes them enjoyable for me is not that they were really defined characters themselves, but more of the really strong bond they had between each other, which mainly revolves around Kamina and Simon, so that really helps their case a lot. This aspect is really demonstrated well in the last few episodes of the show. Now, one reason I think people might not really enjoy the show is that it isn't really grounded in a world where stuff makes a lot of sense. But what really helps this is that even though the world may not be grounded in a stable reality, the emotions of the characters are. You can relate to the emotions of the characters, wanting to live in a world where they aren't treated like a plague that needs to be eliminated, or even just the short-term goal of not letting the people around them die, even if that means giving their own life. Unfortunately, another thing I found lacking were the villains. There's nothing really interesting about them at all. They're just kind of set up as evil. Why, you ask? Because evil. Evil and evil. To be fair, they did try to give them motivation, but it always came at the very end and was so simple that you can say it in a single sentence. What makes them interesting, well put together characters? I don't know, I was never really shown. To be fair, the one exception to this was Viral. Mainly because he does have a personality besides, you know, quote-unquote evil. He does have character development, he does have his own thoughts to show us and be challenged. Or to repeat myself, he is a character. Not the best ever made, but he still was enough to make me enjoy when he was on screen and care about his existence. He didn't feel like he was there solely for opposing the protagonist, which is exactly what the second main villain, the Anti-Spirals, were. I mean, these guys, they would just go on and on about how much they wanted to make everything awful and love seeing humans in absolute despair, which made me think like I was watching some poorly made Saturday morning cartoon. I would really just love to see the show if it would have complemented the amazing characters of Simon and Kamina, if they just had some amazing villains with amazing motives, and you could not agree with what they were doing, but see what they were doing and why they were doing it, and understand it. And they also did this same thing with Lord Genome, the previous villain, who Wasn't as guilty as this as the anti-spirals, I suppose, but still had the same kind of problems. They only at the end gave him, again, a sentence-long motivation, but to be fair, the villains did kind of stay in mediocrity. Probably a bit below for the anti-spirals, though. They didn't become drunk on stupid cliches and awful writing, but at the same time, they were never above okay. Although I do feel like I've been talking about a lot of the negative things I found of this, let me be clear that I never really saw these things were so bad they made me not enjoy watching the show. I found them more as limiting the show of what it could have been one of the all-time great animes, well, in my world anyway. The good always outweighed the bad. But that was until the first few episodes of the second half, which was pretty much what the show had going for it was removed. Mainly, the likability of the characters around them and the strong bonds they had became broken. Mainly this revolves around a betrayal that is really bad because they don't give the betrayer any logical motivation. It's just evil. It just makes me hate everything around it. It's not even evil because evil, it's like a good person who wants to randomly change evil, but we don't know why. It's just like Gandhi was walking around the town someday, and then all of a sudden he wants to pull out a bazooka and start blasting people. It just doesn't make any sense. To be fair, they did give motivation later, but it would have helped so much better if they would have just given the motivation while it was happening and not afterwards. This would have prevented the betrayer from looking like a complete idiot, or just that the later writers were plain bad. I mean, there was no foreshadowing or anything. It was just because the writer said so. Besides, well, people can turn evil, you know, because of power and evil, and he's just not gonna tell you, sorry. And if you don't like it, go sit down in the corner. And he even ends up sending one of his best friends, the main character of Team Gurren at the time, who has saved his life several times before. I mean, not even trying to get rid of him, just death. It was for a reason that I never found a solid claim of. They never showed it. And 99% of humanity was immediately on board with killing the guy who freed them. They tried to explain this by saying that they're mad that their easy lives aren't going to stay the same, which results in them wanting to kill the hero who gave them their good life in the first place. Even worse, the original members of Team Dai-Gurren, who the previously mentioned victims has risked his life for several times and has saved them, they just seem disapproving at best, or not even caring. Not wanting to save the life of a man who has saved them several times before, and this just seems so out of character from what we saw before. Before it was they would give their life for this person, and now it's just, I don't really care. It didn't seem consistent. I'm not saying that this type of thing cannot happen ever, but more the fact that it was written and shown as this possibly happening in such a bad way. To be honest, I kinda wanted them all just to die by the anti-spiral, who we were told to hate. Who the main character, who I still feel sympathetic with since he didn't really do anything wrong, is trying to stop these anti-spirals. Ugh. You see how this is just a huge mess? It contradicts who we were supposed to root for and sends all our emotions all over the place. To be honest, it made me kinda stop wanting to watch the episodes. It was giving us such a strong reason to root for Team Dai-Gurren, which made me want to watch it and it was so enjoyable to me. But thankfully the anime does come out of these doldrums, which I was really glad for. And it gives reasons for the characters and their past motives, which again would have been so good to show us when it was actually happened. But I'm glad they at least showed them now, because it at least makes me not hate everyone completely. And in turn, restoring my ability to root for Team Dai-Gurren. It was a generally good moment, I will give it that, when this eventually turned from really bad just to a really, yes, you guys get it, you are being idiots, and you're going to work together. Thank you. But still, that doesn't make up for just the bad, non-existent motivation of before. Now, a few bad episodes definitely did not ruin this whole thing for me. Very frustrating, yes, but does it kill the whole show? Absolutely not. To wrap myself up, I really found myself enjoying Gurren Lagann, even with its previously addressed problems. The heart and passion of this anime outweighed what it failed in for me. Then after all these problems continued off, things really accelerated back and even beyond what they were before. I really wouldn't recommend this anime to someone who wants a super deep and well thought out plot like Death Note, but for someone who really wants to watch something just to enjoy it and feel encouraged, or just to feel a sense of feeling of passion, or just to bask in the feeling of, if it's impossible, we can do it, and we're going to do it in flaring colors in awesome. It's a sentence. Now, thank you very much for watching the review. Now, if you're interested, I will be having an extension of the review to talk about the ending of Gurren Lagann. If you'd like that, you can click this up here or link in the description.